Here's something nobody puts in the tourism brochure. Between November 2024 and January 2025, Malaysia experienced its worst flooding since 2014. Not in one state, in 9 states simultaneously: Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah, Pahang, Negeri Sembilan, Johor, Perak, Malacca, Perlis. 11,000 square kilometers of Terengganu and Kelantan alone were submerged under floodwater. On a single day, November 29th, a meteorological station in Besut, Terengganu, recorded 566 millimeters of rainfall. That is, in one day, what the area typically receives in 6 months. 137,000 people were displaced. 633 evacuation centers opened across the country. Damage was assessed by DOSM, Malaysia's own Department of Statistics, at 933 million ringgit. Roads cut. Airports disrupted, ferry services suspended, and the Perhentian Islands, one of Malaysia's most celebrated, most internationally marketed beach destinations, became inaccessible. Not because of a small disruption, because the infrastructure connecting them to the mainland was damaged and ferry operations were halted entirely. This happened in November. And here's the thing nobody says out loud: November is the start of Visit Malaysia Year 2026, the 550 million ringgit campaign, the 35 million tourist target, the year Malaysia was supposed to show the world it had arrived as a premium destination. The floods hit, not as an aberration, but as a reminder of something structural that Malaysia has not yet solved. The East Coast, which contains its most spectacular island tourism assets, Perhentian, Redang, Tioman, is climatically hostile to tourists for 5 months every year, and when the monsoon is severe, which climate science tells us it increasingly will be, the physical infrastructure that underpins those island destinations simply collapses. Roads flood, ferries stop, resorts close. And international tourists who had planned and paid for a Malaysian beach holiday are standing at a mainland pier being told there's no way across. This is not fringe, this is not rare, and it is almost entirely absent from the conversation about why Malaysia's premium tourism product is underperforming. The East Coast Island tourism economy operates in a roughly April to October window at most, 5 months a year. When Thailand's Koh Samui is accessible nearly 12 months due to its geographic positioning relative to monsoon systems, and Bali is a year-round destination, the structural window for Malaysia's marquee beach assets is already a competitive disadvantage. When the monsoon is severe enough to damage ferry infrastructure and close the Perhentian Islands entirely during month 1 of the country's biggest ever tourism campaign, that's not bad luck. That's a planning problem that nobody in the tourism brochure conversation wants to name. Let me tell you about the thing that actually draws people to Malaysia. Not the Petronas Towers. Those are on every Southeast Asian itinerary for 30 minutes and a photo. Not the beaches. Thailand's are more reliably accessible. Not the shopping malls. Singapore's are shinier. What draws repeat visitors, food pilgrims, travel writers, and long-haul tourists who choose Malaysia over comparable destinations is one thing: the food, the char kway teow, the nasi lemak, the roti canai at 7 a.m., the asam laksa, the wonton noodles, the sendol at a roadside stall that's been there for 40 years, operated by someone who learned from their grandmother. This is Malaysia's genuine competitive advantage. Every serious food traveller in the world knows it. Anthony Bourdain knew it. Gordon Ramsay went to Penang and got humbled by it. It is the one thing Malaysia has that is genuinely irreplaceable: a culinary heritage built from the collision of Malay, Chinese, Indian, Peranakan, and Borneo traditions that no marketing budget can manufacture. So here's the question. Nobody in the RM 550 million Visit Malaysia campaign is asking: is Malaysia protecting that product? Because the evidence says no. In November 2024, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim himself stood up at the annual Hawkers and Petty Traders Day celebrations in Butterworth and said this. He said, "When you look at the condition of the stalls where 80% of the people dine in, it looks like it is going to collapse and the lights are not working." He said, "Are we not embarrassed?" This is the Prime Minister of Malaysia, in his own words, describing the physical condition of the infrastructure that hosts the country's single greatest tourism attraction. Not a foreign critic, not an online review. The Prime Minister. On the ground, the reality for Malaysia's hawker culture is deteriorating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The generation of hawkers who built the legendary stalls, the people with the 40-year recipes, the muscle memory, the proprietary charcoal flame technique, are aging out of the industry with no succession plan. A family in Petaling Jaya that had operated in the same spot for 60 years, serving more than 300 customers a day from 5 in the morning, was handed a 1-month eviction notice in 2025 when the city council decided the land was needed for drainage upgrades. Not offered relocation. Not compensated appropriately. 1 month. Done. When Singapore nominated its hawker culture for UNESCO heritage status in 2019 and got it in 2020, Malaysians were furious. The argument was that the food originates from Malaysia, not Singapore. That is true. But here is what Singapore did that Malaysia didn't. It documented, protected, funded, and regulated the infrastructure around its hawker culture as a national heritage asset. It created succession pathways for young hawkers. It maintained hygiene standards that made international tourists feel safe eating at stalls. Meanwhile, Malaysia's PM was publicly noting that the physical condition of 80% of hawker centres looked like they're going to collapse. You lose the UNESCO recognition and you lose the physical product at the same time. That is the trajectory of Malaysia's core tourism advantage unless something changes. Now, let's talk about the angle that genuinely nobody covers. There is a global megatrend in travel right now. It is called remote work tourism. The collapse of the 5-day office week has created a new class of traveler who is not on a 2-week holiday. They are people earning $30,000 to $100,000 a year from laptops, who are choosing a base country for 3, 6, 12 months at a time. They are the highest value segment of the modern tourism economy. They rent apartments, not hotel rooms. They eat at restaurants daily for months, not days. They use gyms, co-working spaces, laundry services, grocery stores, transportation. The economic multiplier of a 3-month digital nomad is almost incomparably higher than a 3-day tourist. Thailand understood this. Its long-term resident visa, launched in 2022, is actively attracting this segment in substantial numbers. The Thai BOI reports thousands of approvals, and Chiang Mai and Koh Samui have built entire service ecosystems around digital nomads. Indonesia understood this. Bali's digital nomad ecosystem is globally famous. Canggu has co-working cafes on every corner, year-round, and Indonesia's new E33 Nomad visa is purpose-built for this market. Portugal understood this. Estonia understood it. Mexico understood it. And Malaysia. Malaysia launched the DE Rantau Nomad Pass in October 2022. Great. Excellent. Perfect timing to catch the post-pandemic remote work surge. Here is what happened next. By early 2023, 4 months after launch, the total number of applications submitted was 679. Not approved. Submitted. And of those 679, only 96 had been approved. 14%. The Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, which runs the program, acknowledged the process involved manual verification with employers and multiple government agencies and took up to 4 to 8 weeks. A Japanese couple who applied for the program and documented their experience online went viral when they ran out of tourist visa days while their DE Rantau application sat in a processing queue. They had to leave the country in tears. They loved Malaysia. They wanted to stay legally. The system couldn't move fast enough to keep them. That video spread through digital nomad communities worldwide. Translation: Malaysia wants you. Malaysia has a visa for you. Malaysia's visa processing will force you to leave before it's done. The non-IT eligibility expansion in June 2024 set the income threshold for non-tech professionals at $60,000 per year. Higher than what Portugal asks for, higher than what Indonesia asks for, calibrated not to attract the widest possible pool of high-spending long-term residents, but apparently to minimize uptake. And there are additional restrictions that no comparison country has. The pass is valid for Peninsular Malaysia only. If you hold a DE Rantau pass and want to visit Sabah or Sarawak, Borneo, one of Malaysia's most spectacular natural assets, you need a separate tourist visa. Congratulations, that's definitely the kind of bureaucratic friction you'd design if your goal was to drive digital nomads directly to Bali. So what's actually happening here? When you pull back far enough to see the whole picture, Malaysia has a structural problem that is not primarily about marketing. The 550 million ringgit campaign for Visit Malaysia 2026 is trying to solve a perception problem, but the actual problems are operational. The East Coast beach tourism product, Perhentian, Redang, Tioman, is climatically constrained to roughly half the year and vulnerable to monsoon severity in ways that are getting worse as climate patterns intensify. The country's single greatest authentic tourism draw, its food culture, is physically deteriorating in the venues that host it, aging out of skilled practitioners without succession infrastructure and losing institutional recognition to the neighbour that did protect it. And the global megatrend that is the biggest single opportunity for Malaysia right now, remote work tourism, long-stay, high-spending digital nomads, is being fumbled through a visa program that processes 96 approvals in its first 4 months and sends applicants away weeping on YouTube. These are fixable, all of them. First, build a climate-adaptive strategy for East Coast island tourism. This means resilient ferry infrastructure, early warning systems with pre-arranged tourist accommodation contingencies, and honest marketing that sets realistic seasonal expectations rather than year-round beach promotion that collapses in November. The Philippines does this for typhoon season. Malaysia can do it for monsoon. Second, protect the hawker heritage with the seriousness it deserves. This means creating a Hawker Heritage Protection Fund with real teeth. Protected sites, mandatory notice periods before relocations, succession funding for young hawkers willing to learn traditional recipes, and a national hygiene upgrade program for the physical centres that the Prime Minister himself described as looking like they're about to collapse. Third, fix the DE Rantau program from the inside out. Reduce processing time to 2 weeks maximum. Remove the Peninsular Malaysia restriction. A digital nomad who can't legally visit Borneo on their Malaysian visa is a digital nomad who goes to Indonesia instead. Set the income threshold competitively against regional peers, not above them, and automate verification rather than running everything through manual processes that create 4-month queues. Malaysia's underlying assets for long-stay digital nomad tourism, affordable cost of living, strong English, fast internet, extraordinary food, Central Southeast Asia location are genuinely world-class. The visa program doesn't need to be redesigned. It needs to be unclogged. The tourists aren't leaving Malaysia because they don't like Malaysia. They're leaving because the things Malaysia hasn't fixed are specific, structural, and solvable. And right now, the 550 million ringgit campaign is talking about everything except those things. If you've lived in Malaysia, worked from Malaysia, or visited and run into any of this, the floods hitting your beach plans, the legendary stall that was gone when you came back, the visa process that felt like it was designed to reject you, drop your story in the comments. The real account of what's happening here is built from those experiences. That's what this channel is for.